So I had a couple comments from viewers recently. One of them asked me if I thought that the Philippines was a good place for a foreigner to start a business or a side hustle. Another person responding said, I am never going back to Sweden if I could help it, but he's really looking for a business to start here in order to be able to stay in the Philippines. So in this video, I want to talk to foreigners that are thinking about moving to the Philippines or already here and not sure how they can support themselves, and answer the question, is it a good idea for a foreigner to start a business or a side hustle here in the Philippines? Let's go. So when it comes to starting a business in the Philippines, there are pros and there are cons. So first, in terms of pros, for me, I just think that the Philippines is just a great place to be. And if you're gonna start a business, you wanna really love where you are and you wanna love the people around you. And for me, I think that's the biggest pro here in the Philippines. It's not uncommon here in the Philippines to see people that are singing or dancing, a lot of laughter, and it really makes the workplace just really a joy to be in. So for me, even though I'm the owner, the boss, I still want to enjoy showing up to work, and I still want to really want to be here around people that I enjoy being around. There's nothing worse, whether you're an employee or a boss, to go to a business and it's just like sucks the life out of you because it's just depressing, or it's a struggle, or there's toxicity or different things like that. So overall, I have to say, in the Philippines, it's just really a joy to be around the people that you'll work with. We've had a number of subscribers that have come over here to visit us and that have been inside of our office, and without exception, all of them just really love our team and just say this is really just a great work culture and environment, and the people that work with us love seeing people come. We love having people here, but from day to day, people really enjoy being around each other at work. A second pro here in the Philippines, and I think it's the reason why so many foreign companies open up businesses here, whether the owner is here or not, is that there's typically lower labor costs. So part of that depends on what type of business it is. If you have something where people are making minimum wage, or if you have a company like ours where we have skilled workers, people that are doing website development or graphic design or digital marketing, those types of positions tend to make a few times as much as minimum wage here, sometimes even more, a lot more than that. So labor costs will really depend on the type of business you have. However, if you compare that to labor costs in other countries where you might be living currently, it's really, I think, an incentive for a lot of foreigners to consider here. You could pay people more than average and it still be quite a difference compared to what you might pay in your own country. Third pro that I would say here is that often hard costs for things such as rent, having an office space could be a lot lower than they might be where you live as well. However, and this is a really big however, it depends where you are in the Philippines. So if you are in a province area, or if you are in a city but not in like a business district, for sure rent is going to be a lot lower than it was going to be most like if you were to start it in your home country. However, I have to say, if you are in a business district like where we are here near Cebu Business Park and also near IT Park, if you look at the cost per square footage or cost per square meters, it's really very high. So you will have a lower overall rent perhaps, but you'll also often have less space for the cost. So I would really look into that factor as well. Where you need to be will depend on how low your rent will be, but overall, I would definitely say a pro of doing a business in the Philippines is, as I mentioned already, lower labor costs, but also definitely lower costs for things like rent as well. So what about some cons? I think that in any country, there's going to definitely be some pros and cons when it comes to thinking about starting a business there. I want to talk specifically though about cons that I have found here in the Philippines. So one of them is that people put family first, not work first.
Wait a minute!
Now, for people listening in the Philippines, they might say, that's a con? Well, if you're here and the culture is to put family first, it's it's really a beautiful part of culture here in the Philippines because people really take care of their family. However, if you're an employer here and you have clients that want things done now or yesterday, and you have employees that have a million reasons why they need to do this or that for their family, and it's seen as very legitimate here, it could really be a pain in the neck running a business in those circumstances, and you will find inevitably that will impact your business to some degree. How large that is, time will tell, but just expect that that will definitely have an impact here in the Philippines. In cultures like where I come from in the US, really work comes first. I mean, there has to be something extremely serious happening to a family member for an employee to miss work because of that family member. However, here, it might just simply be because their mom needs to go to the hospital because she's feeling sick and they don't want her to go alone. You know, I still go to the hospital myself or do things by myself, but here it's just really seen like you got to be there for your family member, and so the mindset here is incredibly different. Like I said, it's a beautiful thing overall about the culture here, but when it comes to work, it definitely poses its challenges. Second challenge here, and I gotta say that people don't often follow through like they should with things like interviews. We might have 6 people scheduled to be interviewed for a position on a day, and maybe 1 or 2 out of the 6 show up. Other times we might have 4 people scheduled for a day and we have 0 people show up. So it just kind of baffles my mind at times here why people don't show up to job interviews. And of course, there's so many wonderful people here that are responsible. As a matter of fact, I'm interviewing 2 people that are waiting out in our lobby now till I'm done talking to you guys, and that is 2 out of 2, so it's a good interview day. But sometimes you will just find that people don't have the follow through here. I'm hoping that will change as the pandemic impact kind of moves on. There's more and more people that are working out of offices, but time will tell on that, how much time you might spend recruiting and hiring great employees here. The third con here really isn't a con for me because I love learning new cultures. However, if you're the type of person that doesn't especially want to learn about new cultures, and especially in this case work culture, that's going to be a con for you. A lot of people think about culture as, you know, what people eat or what they wear, different factors like that, the kind of music they listen to, but culture is also very much something that impacts work. So there is work culture within a broader culture. You know, if you think about a country like Japan and you think about what their work culture is like, I'm sure certain things come to mind. If you were to ever spend any time in somewhere like Hawaii, it's way more of an island culture. There would definitely be different perceptions of work there as well. And I have to say for the Philippines, I think that there's a lot of the kind of islander culture that impacts work culture over here to some extent in terms of just thoughts about time and how things are done. So if you are going to start a business in the Philippines, you're really going to have to spend some time learning work culture over here because it will have some impacts on your business. Not saying they'll all be negative, but if you come here and you have the mindset that you could do things exactly like you did in your own country, chances are that's not going to work out as you planned. So much of my best intentions moving here of how I did things in the US that worked really well there in terms of leading and managing people completely backfired here in the Philippines, and so I've learned a lot the hard way. So plan on needing to learn work culture if you decide to start a business over here as well. There's some pros, there's some cons, but what are you gonna do about these to address these? The first thing I'd want to tell you is that if you are a foreigner considering starting a business here in the Philippines, 1, talk to a good attorney. You know, attorneys are just so reasonably priced here. Mostly I would expect about $30 US for a 1-hour consultation. I mean, that is just nothing compared to what you're gonna pay in most of the rest of the world. So don't be cheap. Spend a little bit of money talking to a great attorney to find out the laws and what you need to know as a foreigner starting a business here. But also I would say, whatever business you're thinking about starting, make sure that you talk to other people that are here on the ground with that type of business and ask them, what are your profit margins? How hard is it to get supplies? How hard is it to hire employees that have the skills that you need? What are the positives? What are the negatives? Especially ask the negatives. What are the cons? Ask questions like, if you could start a business all over again, would you still start the same business? And see what they have to say to you. It's so important to really get a deep understanding of the business you're considering, because what you think that business will be like here and what it actually is like here may be completely different than you expect. Second thing that I would say is talk to a foreigner that's been here for a while, that cares about people, that cares about culture, that really kind of has that empathy to really understand what other people are thinking here, how they act here, how things work here. Let them know about your business ideas, what you want to do, and see what they think about your ideas. I can't overestimate how much of a difference culture is here compared to other places, and learning that is going to be a really important factor to having a successful business, no matter what it might be. And the third and final thing that I would say to you is that if you're a foreigner considering starting a business here in the Philippines, take all of your perspectives of what work is like in your culture, put them in both hands, crumple them up, throw them into the fire, and really take the time to see what that will actually look like here. Culture is so radically different from country to country, and certainly that's no exception here in the Philippines. Make sure that you really understand what work will be like here in the Philippines before you even consider starting a business here. Have any more questions about this topic? I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Already have a business here in the Philippines? Would love to hear your perspective and what you think on this topic as well. As always, guys, thank you for taking the time to watch, and take care.